What's up, y'all, and welcome to probably the best fitness and nutrition podcast ever. We know there's a ton of wellness information out there.
But we also know that by learning to optimize your nutrition, fitness, recovery, mindset, and relationships, that you'll feel more human than ever.
That's why we take fitness and nutrition seriously, but not ourselves.
So turn up your volume while learning, laughing, and crying with us. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rue Fitness to stay up to date on the best fitness advice, and at Stacked Coaching for all of the most important nutrition tips and tricks.
And now, the podcast that will change your life.
Probably.
What's up, everybody? I am Bradley. This is Emily. We have a very special guest, a former room member, and now the COO of his own business, Effective Fitness, Matthew Shiver. What's up, Matthew?
Hey, guys. Not much, guys. I actually just got off the road. I've been traveling out west for the past 5 months, and I just got back to Charleston. This is where my home is now. And looking forward to being grounded for this next few months.
Now, I read on Facebook that you were a nomad for 5 months. How was that life?
It was awesome, right? So there's definitely pros and cons to all things. Like, to be grounded, it's really helpful when you're working on projects because you don't have to worry about, man, do I have a hotspot? Do I have Wi-Fi? All these things, like, they're just there.
Right.
And also, when you are traveling, it gives you this time to be really creative because you're around a bunch of new people, a bunch of new scenery, new settings. So a lot of ideas were brewing during that time. And now I'm really excited to be here, grounded, to really work on those things. So yeah, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about life, and it was a really good journey.
You were traveling with other coaches, right?
I was, yeah. So, there's about 8 of us, anywhere from like 6 to 10. Typically, there's about 8 of us, and we were in Sedona, Arizona for 2 weeks. We stayed outside Zion National Park for a month,
Beautiful.
and then so pretty. Hung out in California. We kind of bounced around for a month there. We were like in Tahoe, outside Dunsmuir, and even went to SoCal for like a few days. So all over Oregon for a month, and then Washington for about 2 weeks.
What a great experience.
How did you all decide to do this?
Yeah. So the nomad life, yeah. Hashtag digital nomad.
I feel
One of
like y'all could be
there's one
friends
person
with
who
Alex Honnold. That's the
I don't know him, but
he is the free solo guy.
Have you seen the Free Solo documentary? It's crazy.
He lived out of his van and just
I have
climbed
not.
mountains.
Is it on Netflix?
It is on Netflix, but he lived out of his van for years and just free soloed a bunch of mountains. So no ropes, no safety.
I would be all about connecting with that guy. Yeah.
So how did y'all decide to do this?
So there's one person in particular, his name's Ben, and he kind of headed it. It was kind of his vision, and he wanted to do this. For the past year, maybe 2 years, he's actually been doing this already. So a lot of people just saw that he was doing it. Like, yo, what are you doing, man? Like, how are you living this lifestyle? Like, you hop on Zoom calls during the day, and then you go hike Zion National Park, like doing some hikes in there in the afternoon with friends. This could be a really cool gig.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it came to me. I was like, New Year's came around, and I was like, what do I want to do this year? And in the past, a lot of them have been like fitness goals. And this time, the word that kept popping up was travel. It's like, I just want to go do something, like go somewhere new. And I reached out. I was like, well, who's the one person that I know that does this already and does it really well? And it was my friend Ben. So I gave him a call, and I was just asking him questions like, how do you organize this? Like, how do you do this? Like, what equipment do I need? And by the end of the call, he's like, you just want to come join me? Like, I'm doing this. There'll be at least 2 or 3 of us. I'm like, yeah, man, that would be awesome. I'd love to do that. And more people just joined along the way. Like we just kept picking up people. And some people would stay for a week, some would stay for a month, and some stayed for the entire journey.
I love it. So I didn't even just tell anybody who you are, really. So
let's back up.
Yeah, let's back it up. So Matthew,
I'm a nomad. That's all you need to
Yeah.
know. I'm a nomad.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump right into that. But Matthew is a doctor of physical therapy, graduated from Duke, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. You actually trained with us for about 6 months, less than that.
3 months.
3.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Matt walks into the gym and he's like, hey, I'm a student and I'm a physical therapy student and I'm looking for a gym to join and I don't really have any money, but I'll coach for y'all. And I was like, who the hell is this dude? No. And then we started talking to him. And I was like, oh, I think Bradley looked him up on Instagram and figured out that you had some credentials. And he was like, okay, maybe we should give this guy a shot. So you actually trained at RU and then put on a seminar for our coaches on Olympic weightlifting.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That is exactly what happened. And I had a strategy. I mean, even so, when I was in PT school, I did this too. Is I reached out to all the CrossFit gyms and I just sent them all messages. And I was like, hey, I'd love to coach in exchange for a gym membership. And yeah, one got back with me, and that was the one that I worked with. And I even continued to coach and do barbell programming for them up until probably the end of this year at some point.
Oh, wow.
So what were some of those credentials that Bradley Schneller was so impressed by?
I think it was probably the experience, maybe.
You worked for
CSDS. Yeah. So I had some experience working with some competitive weightlifters. I've been doing it I started my own weightlifting club when I was in college. So my university had a barbell team, which was a ton of fun. And then I hosted some weightlifting meets, and then I graduated there, went to Duke and started a barbell club there, doing that same outreach strategy.
Yeah.
and then went to some national events, like went to the Arnold, and then I had met Travis Mash, who is he's one of Team USA coaches, and he's got a lot of elite level. Right now, I think he works primarily with like youth and juniors. He's got some adults and like open and senior division people, but mainly like that younger crowd, college age is really who he specializes with. And yeah, I had met him at the Arnold, and we found out that we were actually in the same fraternity at Appalachian State, and we had some mutual people that connected us. So I coached with him for about 2 years, and I had I had anywhere from like 10 to 30 different online clients while I was in PT school. And then my last year at PT school is when I started my rotations, and I had 3 months scheduled in New Orleans. And that's when I found you guys.
Yeah. And so you and I shared a lot of conversations. You have a pretty good idea of where my head is with fitness and how weightlifting and CrossFit and all those things fit into the general public. What were kind of your initial impressions of RU and what we were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I remember when Emily was like, we're in it may not be this exact it, but you're like, we're an event company that happens to specialize or work with fitness.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Something along those lines. And I was like, whoa, that totally blew my mind. And then I realized it more. I was like, yeah, this is really about creating community. And one thing that you guys did that I've never seen was when at the start of every class, we'd go around and we'd answer a question.
Yeah.
And it would just be a way to it's like an icebreaker every single class. And I remember the first few ones, I'm like, man, what am I going to say? Like, I don't know.
Right.
And after a while, you got to really learn the different people's personalities. And yeah, I loved that. So your gym in particular had a really good community. And even on the Saturdays, it was like, what was it? It was barbells and bourbon for dudes.
Yeah.
We did that. We did
Metcons and mimosas.
Metcons and mimosas.
We're about to bring that stuff back. COVID really could put a damper on everything, but it's
been on hiatus for a minute, but yeah.
It's on its way back.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I love the community that you guys had. And as far as like the fitness and stuff you had too, you guys had a lot of different things. Like you didn't just have CrossFit, you guys had functional bodybuilding, which I thought was really cool. That's something that I haven't seen a lot of gyms implement. I don't know if you still do that. Gymnastics, and then I think you had a barbell club too that coached maybe like that met.
Yeah.
It wasn't consistent at the time, but yeah.
So we actually had a ton of programs. We had sculpt, we had boxing,
Mm.
we did functional bodybuilding, we had a barbell club. We got rid of most of those. So COVID kind of happened. And we had to make cuts, but we also realized that we wanted to spend our time and energy the most in one place. And when it came down to it, it was basically CrossFit. And some of those other means were like ways to get people in the gym, but all of our focus all the time was on CrossFit. And how we view CrossFit has maybe changed over the years, but it's still the base methodology for everything we do. We do still have a weightlifting club. And then we basically alternate between more powerlifting centric cycles and functional bodybuilding cycles. So right now we're in like week 6 of a 12-week functional bodybuilding cycle. So
in the CrossFit, like as part of the CrossFit.
Yeah, so it's
classes.
tough. It's tough because, you follow me on Instagram, I follow you. I know we share a lot of similar thoughts on fitness, how it should be accomplished and stuff like that. The tough thing about it is implementing functional bodybuilding in a group-like setting is difficult because sometimes it's not fun, right? Like it's just like it's fun for me because I like just to work out, right?
I love it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Get
it's
a pump,
great.
feel
Yeah, you
good.
get a pump,
Shirt
still
feels
doing-
nice and like tight.
I'm still doing all the
Medium
major
shirt.
lifts. I'm doing all the accessory lifts, but not a lot of people like that, right? Like they want like a couple of things, high intensity, want
Fire
cardio,
breather.
fire breather, that kind of stuff. So lately here over the past few weeks, I've been trying to blend them a little bit better, which I think I'm doing, but it's tough to like change the culture or the mindset of what might be best for the group.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
That was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I get that. Yeah. No, yeah, bodybuilding stuff, even like for accessory work, if someone's doing weightlifting or powerlifting, like
Yeah.
that's the stuff that's like not the sexy stuff, It's-
Right. No, not at all.
People want to skip that. They're like, I want to breathe hard. I want to feel like I worked out. I'm like, what are you talking about? This shirt is so tight right now. Do you not feel that? Like the glutes are on fire.
Yeah, I mean,
boring.
I had somebody recently be like,
No.
I just want to put on some awesome music and just sling weight around. And I'm like, you can't just do that all the time. You will get injured.
Yeah, you're not going to build any resiliency to that. Yeah.
No. So your background in weightlifting, especially working with Mash Elite and being a physical therapist, how do you view how weightlifting, and I mean Olympic weightlifting, is best implemented to the general public?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really comes down to the goal specifically of that either population or that person individually. It's not, I love weightlifting and it doesn't mean it's for everybody by any means. Even athletes, like there's a lot that can be done outside of weightlifting. Weightlifting is a great tool to be used for those things. So sports for those people, but it's not something that every single person needs to do.
Right.
Especially if they don't have the required mobility or stability or even just like strength to do it. It's almost like the kipping pull-up, right? Like you can have somebody who can do 5 kipping pull-ups and they can't do a strict pull-up. It's like, well, what good is the kipping pull-up doing? And you could say a really similar thing with the technique of weightlifting, which is very advanced and takes years to really to develop that.
It's not only years, but reps too. And that's kind of one of the things is, I was gung-ho CrossFit for a while, and one of my favorite lifts was snatching. And I think you and I actually talked about this when you were here.
We did.
And I kind of phased out barbell snatching out of our everyday program. Actually, kind of is a bad word. We don't do it anymore. And if that means people are ill prepared for competitions, that's fine with me because I don't care. Because my goal is to get people results for what their main goals are, and to stay healthy enough to where they can do this every single day. And for such a complicated weightlifting movement that requires a lot of parts, a lot of technique, a lot of mobility, a lot of core strength, right? It's something that needs to be practiced multiple times a week. You can't just do it once or twice every week or every other week, like most CrossFit gyms implement it. And when they do it, they're like, we're gonna do 75 reps of this. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, so we kind of saved that for our barbell club, Tuesday and Thursday nights with Jana, so that they can practice it and do it with repetition. Any thoughts on that?
100%. And what came to mind too is like, you can use variations of the movements. Like that's what a lot of collegiate settings will do with their athletes. They'll do pulls, high pulls.
Yeah, we do
because they're
snatch, grip,
training
deadlift.
it.
Yeah.
And they're training it for the power development part, right? Like, and if we look at the sport of weightlifting or even in CrossFit, we're not doing those things for power development. We're doing it to lift more weight. And even if you look at a great level like weightlifters, what sets them apart isn't like their hip power. I mean, yes, they have a lot of hip power. It's their speed under the bar, which doesn't really translate to a lot of like functional fitness or like everyday population people. So power variations are great. They, like you said, require lots of repetition, repetition, but also repetition under a coach's eye who knows what they're looking for. And that's really challenging to do in a class setting with the music turned up loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. So for you, you've had all this experience since college, growing up in a weightlifting world. Now you have experience as a physical therapist working in the real world and working with athletes and people striving to improve athletic performance. Has your views on fitness changed at all? How it should be implemented, what should be done, etc.
Injury prevention.
Yeah.
Yes to all of those things. Man, where do I even begin with this one? I think for like a big part of it too, it is a lot of it comes back to like, what is the goal? Like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for like to build strength? Am I doing this because I want more confidence? Am I doing this because I want to be competitive? And for me, it was a big push for the longest time was like being competitive and hoping that would change how like other people perceived me, or even as a coach or a therapist, thinking, man, if I snatch this much, that's just going to draw people to me, which is this story that I just made up in my head.
We all told ourselves.
Oh, I'm sure. Or like, man, if I just looked more jacked and ripped, like I would get more nutrition clients because like they want to look like me.
Right.
Which is toxic because you're not doing it from a place of like, I want to be better. Like from a place of like self-love of like, no, I love what I have going. I love my physique. I love how strong I am. And I just want to keep developing that because I love it. Instead of like, I don't like where I'm at. And I want more because I don't accept where I currently am. So yeah, my relationship to fitness has changed a lot and it's continued to develop. And there were even some times in there where I was like, I needed to take a break because I'm realizing that this competitive nature is like almost self-sabotaging. So for me, I went from that like extreme of I'm training to compete and be the best or be this thing to now I'm training to be healthy and like and to feel good. And when I leave the gym, I want to feel good. I don't want to feel like I don't want my knee and my back to be hurting because I was so goal oriented at this specific number of I got to squat 500. Okay, cool. That means I got to squat 3 days a week, even though my body's like, yo, you need a break right now. Your knee hurts, your back hurts. Why are you doing this? 500, like, who made that up?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, and that's kind of where we have shifted to this mindset of, load versus capacity, right? Like what's our capacity every single day? Where is our load? And how are we pushing that? And how are the workouts pushing that? And then that requires listening to your body. So we almost have to put handcuffs on people a little bit, right? Where, not every workout is for measure. we slow things down and do some flows and things like that. Now, look, we still do probably twice a week some stuff for time or for reps to add in a little spiciness to make it a little bit fun and keep it interesting. But it's been tough over 2 or 3 years. I mean, when you try to change the culture, a heavy CrossFit culture for 5 years and 6 years, that's like every other CrossFit gym, and now say, hey, we're not going to do this because we don't think it's healthy for the long term of the person, and push in a different direction, you're going to piss some fucking people off, But guess what? I have never done anything great by worrying about what other people think.
Right. Right. Just following what you think is best. Like, hey, I think this is best for you. I think this is best for the gym, and going with that route. And yeah, you're going to lose people along the way. The impact you're going to have is going to be much greater, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not for everyone. I don't expect us to be for everyone. But we are exactly for who you just described, someone that wants to worry about their health, worry about their fitness, worry about the long term, and get in and have a little fun while we do it. So I love it. So can you tell me a little bit more about Effective Fitness? So you're working with law enforcement officers, right? First responders.
Yes. Yeah. Law enforcement officers is the population that we serve there. And what it is we use Train Heroic, which is an app you have on your phone, and it gives them daily workouts. So we have equipment and body weight versions for people to follow. And it is typically that more of that like CrossFit gym style, to where everyone's following the same program. Even if you join in the middle of the cycle, you're not starting from day one. You're starting with the team, because we wanted to really develop that community.
I love that.
And like people training together. And there's a leaderboard function on there. There's a forum on there, and just being able to see that like camaraderie going back and forth, especially in the law enforcement population, or that tactical population, where community is really important to them. And sometimes they may not see that if they're separate from each other. So like if they're in different patrol cars. So whenever we can bring people together who are serving the same population, it really does generate a lot of community and a lot of friendships. That's
awesome. And you're also transitioning to be the coach of other coaches, yeah?
Yes. It's a lot of fun. So like I have found that like a lot of my strengths are organization. So even when I was doing a lot of PT and doing a lot of training, what made me successful in that was that I had everything scheduled. I was super like very routine and structured. And I applied that same, I started applying those same principles to business and to growing this company, so we can impact more people and have a bigger base. And it started really taking off. And now I'm starting to provide some of those services to other coaches too, is to teach them the back end operations, to where they can streamline things and stay in their own unique genius.
We need to come visit you, Matthew, because I love it. Like, you're speaking our language. Like, we are same brain wavelength here.
Yeah.
How did you develop, though, Effective Fitness? Was it you and some other people, or someone got you into it?
Yeah. So there's a team of us, and I was brought on actually as a contractor to start, and then put in some sweat equity and became part of the team. So originally it had started because one of the founders is the founder of an Instagram account called Police Post, and they've got lots of followers on Instagram. I believe it's the biggest police Instagram account like on Instagram, about to pass 400,000. So wow. Very, very high number of followers. And what he posts on there is a lot of training tips. So a lot of training tips, or like he'll get some body cam footage of something that happened on the streets, and he'll give feedback on, hey, how could this have been prevented, or what could the officer have done differently, or what did the officer do really well, and that'll go out to a lot of people. So he'd been putting in a lot of time with this, and I believe he had the account for at least 10 years before we created Effective Fitness. So it was about a decade of just providing value. And after that time period, he's like, look, I want to help these people at a further basis. And he reached out to a local physical therapist, which is where I kind of get connected in, is a local physical therapist in the area who was like, hey, I don't really know. He didn't know a ton about training. And he'd been going to this physical therapist to get like dry needling and getting some PT stuff. And then they like continued to communicate and was like, hey, we should partner on this. Like we can do the fulfillment side. And if you can continue to send us people that we can support, like we'd love to do that. And that's when Effective Fitness essentially got born. And we've been providing support to law enforcement officers ever since.
Yeah.
And the big, what the big thing that we preach on, which comes back to what we're talking about with the training, is that like minimal effective dose.
Yes.
Is what is the least amount that we can give somebody to give them the maximal results. And that's especially important for the law enforcement community because they have a lot more other stressors than you or I do. They may have work weird hours. They may have situations that come up on shift that really do put them into a sympathetic state. And that may take hours, days, weeks for them to really come back down. And because of that, their training should adjust and reflect that.
Can you talk a little bit more about how the training you provide, or let's say athletic performance specifically, okay, and that as a tool not only keeps them safer, but also maybe the civilian safer as well when it comes to interactions?
Could you rephrase that?
Okay, so yeah, sorry. So one of the things, and I was specifically when you talk about jujitsu and jujitsu for police officers, right? And one of them is how it helps the officer control the situation better. But I imagine it's not only from a personal control, but also keeping the maybe the person they are responding to a little bit safer as well, because that not only can they control their emotions, but their physicality as well. Could you dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, I mean, even officer presence, like when someone first arrives at a scene, is the first line of defense for the officer, as well as like how someone's going to perceive them. So being physically fit, in shape, etc., even just that first encounter is like looking up at somebody. Like when someone sees you, and if it's let's just say it's a suspect or something, they may size you up. So even from that first interaction of like, oh, this person's physically fit, this person's taking care of themselves, can definitely change that situation, that encounter, just from the start itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, like especially with BJJ training, so like that's something that we do talk a lot about. Is another reason we give that minimal effective dose is that so officers can do defense tactics outside of training. They're not so beat up from like heavy squats and deadlifts and snatches, whatever, like that they just can't do those things that they need to do to be a better officer. And that's the goal of our training, is like how can we maximize their training to where they feel the best on shift. Because if their training is beating them up so much that they're now having like mental fatigue, or they're easily frustrated and they're in a worse state, it's going to project onto any situation they encounter. So if we can get them feeling good, they're healthy, they look good, their appearance is good, and they're spending time developing other skills like defense tactics, communication, etc., it's going to be a better recipe for all parties involved.
I love that. I love that so much.
Awesome.
Are there any statistics on that at all? Maybe, do you know? I was just wondering.
Well, yeah, good question. So there's some that we've been using, but most of the stuff that we've been pulling for these things are going to be based off of like injuries, because like that's reported, like work incident reports and stuff are reported. We recently, and are stepping into this avenue now, is actually working with entire police departments. And over this year, so over the past 8 months, we've already supported 4 agencies, like 4 or 5 bigger agencies, and giving fitness routines to their entire department. And with that, we do look to collect more information as we do that, because then that'll allow us to, to see is like, how does fitness affect these people? And a lot of it will be subjective just because we're not in there every single day with them and being able to monitor those things. So yeah, that's definitely an avenue that we continue to want to develop and to learn more about.
Oh, I love it so much. All right. So you mentioned something about not squatting, or deadlifting 500 pounds to be able to reduce stress and move a little bit more freely or from injury. Have your views on how much weight someone should lift changed at all over the past, 5 to 6 years? And what I mean by that is the old standard used to be deadlift 2 times your body weight, back squat 1.5 times, bench press 1 time your body weight, something along those lines. Is that correct?
Sounds about right. Sounds
Yeah.
close to it.
Yeah. Do you still think that's a good standard, or are you more along the lines of like, hey, you don't really need to deadlift maybe more than your body weight or a little bit over that? Or has any of that changed for you?
Yeah, I've never set clear standards or like expectations of like, this is where it should be. I think it really comes down to like, how much time does it take you to progress, to continue to progress? So like, what do you need to sacrifice to continue to progress?
Ooh.
So if you have to start, adding sessions in, and when you add a session and you're taking away from time that could be spent doing more like mobility work or even like mindfulness practice, right? So like if you have to keep adding things, and when you add something, it requires you to take something away, that's when I'd say, okay, is it still worth it for you? And if it is, that's cool. Like it's totally up to that person. Yeah, that's my answer today.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we talk about in nutrition all the time, is where do you rank your goals? And deciding like, hey, if a 6-pack is number 1, are you willing to not do 3, 4, 5 in order to hit number 1? Right. Like, or
Or do you adjust your goal?
Or you adjust your goal.
Right.
Or is it like, well, I want to be healthy, but I also want to eat at restaurants all weekends and drink all weekend. Okay. Like if that's number 1, we'll do that, and we'll make, nutrition fit to that. But again, goals have to be adjusted. Right.
I like how you prioritize that with a number list. Is that how you do it?
I do. I mean, I have
love
my
that.
clients make success lists. And it's more or less like, hey, let's rank, top 5, take those 3, move them over. Which one of those 3 is the most important? Here we go. And that's going to be our focus.
I love that.
Oh, good.
I might steal it, use this whiteboard here and steal that in a second.
Definitely. I'm totally in on that. So I do want to ask you about this because you are coaching coaches here, and I love this quote. And I just want to read it for everybody because not a lot of coaches listening to this, but It's stop charging clients an hourly rate, charge for the result you will provide them. I love that because I have recently altered my training a little bit with some of my clients, not because I read this quote, but this quote just happened to fit what I was doing. And it's like, I have a goal for that session. If we reach that goal in 40 minutes, I'm not going to jam another 20 minutes of fitness down your throat. And also at the same time, like people need to be built up, right? And so like we have to increase capacity over time. So an hour isn't always right. It depends on how that person's moving in the session, what they're experiencing. I'm watching their body language. I'm watching their breaks. I'm watching, facial expressions, those types of things to determine, are we going a whole hour or are we going 40 minutes? Sometimes it's 35, depending on the person. But nonetheless, they're paying for the result, right? In the long term, they're not paying for the hour.
Yeah. And being really clear with that. And that's like the key to it is like when you start working with somebody and you give them the offer, you're explaining what it is. It's like, you're not paying for my hour. It's like, we're going to get this result by this certain time period. It could be 90 days. It could be 120 days. It could be 160 days, whatever it is. But it's like, hey, this is what we're going to do together. And there'll be days where I'm sure you're going to probably stay longer
Right.
because that's what you need. Maybe you need some more, like you just need someone to talk to. Like there's some emotional stuff that's going on, and they just need to have like another 5-10 minutes of your time just to unwind and let it all go out. And like, yeah, and you can be there for them. If you're charging per hour though, like I've had sessions where I'm like, man, this person's toast. I guess we'll just stretch for 30 minutes. And you're like, I just wasted both of our time instead of being like, hey, this is a great session. We accomplished all these things in this period of time. Go home, go enjoy a meal, and let's continue when we get back.
I love that. I love that. So anything else to add, Em?
Where can people find you, Matt?
You can find me on Instagram at Shive, SHIV _on. Shive on Instagram. That's the best place to find me right now.
Okay.
I love it. I love it, man. And it's also for any of the first responders or law enforcement officers out there listening, it is at Effective Fitness. Is that correct?
Yep, it's effectivefitness.training. Yeah, we're waiting for, there's like one account that's like this, just like no one owns it, and it's just Effective Fitness. There's no profile picture. I'm like, when is Facebook or Instagram just gonna mark it as an active so we can just take it?
Yeah.
Yeah, effectivefitness.training for Instagram, and effective.fitness is our website.
All right, I want
Find
two
us
things
there.
from you before we leave. Okay, the first one is your most controversial physical therapist hot take.
Uh-oh.
Most controversial, like something that's like that is deemed good or bad type thing.
Yeah, like people would be like, "Oh, really?"
Oh yeah, rounding your back on a deadlift is not going to kill you, or it's not going to herniate a disc.
Oh.
It's not going to kill you.
That is
Yeah.
definitely a good hot take.
That's a good one.
I love that one.
We
You mind
and if you
diving into
want,
that for a hot sec?
yeah, yeah. Well, as you were talking about like load versus capacity, that's a big topic there. Is that all the tissue that we have in our body is able to be adapted. It's able to get stronger, and over time, like as long as you progress smoothly and steadily over time, you can make any tissue stronger and adaptable. So the same thing goes with like lower back and doing like Jefferson curls.
The curls. That's what I was gonna say.
If
Yeah.
yeah, like Jefferson curls are a great way. Like I've given them to so many people who've got low back pain, and they're like, man, this feels so good. Like interesting. Like that's good. Good to know it feels good. If you were to go in that position and you get like tingling down your legs, they'd be like, yeah, that's not the exercise for you at this point. But to say that anybody that does like a rounded back deadlift or goes into that position is going to have a herniated disc, what it does is it creates fear from that position. And then even when I go to a deadlift, I'm like, man, I really hope I don't round my back right now.
I think the
And
other
I'm just
thing
setting myself up to round my back in a deadlift because I'm so fearful of it.
correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't let's say volume of reps and load matter as well?
Absolutely. Like for Jefferson and a lot of it is building that capacity, which is done with load and reps.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be doing Jefferson curls, like heavy Jefferson curls daily. Like you can do heavy Jefferson curls. Like I've got a PT who lives here locally. He's a strongman competitor, and he does his deadlifts with a rounded back, and he can deadlift over 600 pounds.
Wow.
And it's not to say that like I would encourage people to do that. Like I think there's definitely optimal ways to do a deadlift and to load tissues that have a higher tissue capacity already. So like the glutes, hamstrings, like all of those are better pullers than the low back. But it's not to say that if you go in that position, oh no, it's the world's over. I need to go see a PT. It's like that's not the case.
I said something to that effect today. I was working someone out, and I saw like right before they would go back to the ground on a deadlift, lower back rounding every single time. Gave them some cues, couldn't fix it. Had them back up off the bar. Did a standing pelvic lumboflexion test. Couldn't get anywhere near the floor. Asked if they had any discomfort. He's like, "Oh, my hips are super tight. This is tight." I was like, "Cool." So I raised the floor a little bit, had them deadlifting maybe off of a couple of 45-pound plates, fix the problem temporarily. And I just told the client, I was like, hey, look, like this is something we'll work on over time. It's not a big deal right now at this rep scheme and this weight load, you know, but
Totally.
over time we'll fix it. And I think saying something along those lines and pointing it out, like it's not the end of the world at this weight, at this rep scheme, kind of disarms the person a little bit.
Totally. And that's where the education component comes in. And it's just like letting people know that, hey, you're safe doing this. If I see someone doing it in a gym setting, I'm still going to go say, hey, this is a
Right.
better mechanically position for you. Like your glutes are going to be is going to help you long-term lift more weight than you being in this rounded position. It's just like same thing for any weightlifting movement. It's like, if you see something, there's more mechanically efficient ways, and load versus capacity, the capacity of the glutes and hamstrings to pick something up off the ground is higher than the low back. That's not meant to do that over a lot of repetitions.
I love that. All right, so that was number one. Number two is give me your best fitness nugget or advice for everyone listening today.
No pressure.
No
Mm.
pressure. Or it could just be something
That's-
that you preach all the time.
Yeah, getting really clear, and this is for me too, I'm saying this for me too, is just getting really clear of like why, like, sure, you have a goal, and then, well, why is that your goal?
Mm.
And then ask at least 2 to 3 times deeper, well, why is that important? Oh, well, why is that important? Well, why is that important?
Yeah.
And then you really get to the reason, and then sometimes that will, by that reason at the bottom, that deep layer is going to definitely change, or can change, the way you exercise and like your outlook on how hard you train, how much weight you lift, like how often you go. And if you can get really clear on your reason why, it makes it a lot more easy to say yes and no to specific things.
I love it. Matthew, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And we hope you
Yeah.
visit us soon. Maybe we can do a effective fitness seminar for some police departments down here.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd love
Good
that.
to see you, Matt.